The median net worth of a white family in America is approximately 10 times the median net worth of a black family, and yet black men are working, building businesses, buying homes, saving, investing, and pursuing financial stability at growing rates. So if the effort is there, what is creating the gap? In our last episode, we looked at entrepreneurship. We talked about Black-owned businesses, capital access, the creator economy, and what it means to build something of your own when the system is not always designed to support you. But earning money and building wealth are not the same thing. A person can earn a good income, run a successful business, work for decades, provide for a family, and still leave very little behind. Because income comes in, wealth stays. This episode is about what stays. According to data from the U.S. Census Bureau, the median annual income for Black men in the United States remains lower than that of white men. The gap has narrowed over time, but it has not disappeared. Income matters. It determines what people can afford today, but wealth tells a different story. Wealth measures what remains after debts are subtracted from assets, savings, home equity, retirement accounts, investments, businesses, property. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances continues to show a substantial gap in median net worth between Black and white families. The difference is measured not in percentages, but in multiples. Home ownership is one of the most important parts of that story. For most American families, a home is the largest asset they will ever own. A home can appreciate in value. It can be borrowed against. It can be transferred to children. It can become the foundation of generational wealth. Yet home ownership rates among Black families remain significantly lower than those of white families. Housing access is not simply a question of personal preference. It is also connected to history, redlining, mortgage discrimination, neighborhood disinvestment, exclusionary housing policies. Although many of these practices are now illegal, their effects continue to shape communities today. The housing conversation does not end with ownership. In many cities, rising housing costs and gentrification have displaced long-established Black communities. Neighborhoods that were once ignored become desirable. Property values rise. Some homeowners benefit. Others are priced out. The story is rarely simple. Investing reveals another part of the picture. Black Americans are less likely to own stocks, mutual funds, and retirement accounts than white Americans. Researchers consistently identify access, financial education, and historical wealth disparities as major factors influencing this gap. At the same time, younger generations of Black adults are investing at higher rates than previous generations. Technology, retirement plans, low-cost investment platforms, and increased access to financial information are changing the landscape. The final piece of the puzzle is inheritance. Wealth compounds across generations. What grandparents own affects what parents inherit. What parents own affects what children receive. Research consistently shows that white families are more likely to receive inheritances and that those inheritances tend to be larger. The wealth gap is not simply about income earned today. It is also about assets accumulated yesterday. So what do these numbers tell us? The first thing they tell us is that the racial wealth gap is real. It is measurable. It is persistent. And it cannot be explained by one factor alone. The second thing they tell us is that wealth is different from income. A high income does not automatically create wealth. Wealth requires ownership, assets, time, compounding, and often generations of accumulation. The third thing these numbers tell us is that history matters. Many of the systems that influence wealth today were built decades ago, sometimes centuries ago. The effects of those systems do not disappear simply because the laws changed. The home ownership data may be the most important information in this episode, because for many families, wealth begins with a home. And when access to home ownership is limited, access to wealth building is often limited as well. The inheritance data connects all of it. Wealth compounds, it grows, it transfers. And what one generation is able to build affects what the next generation starts with. But here is what the numbers cannot tell you. They cannot tell you about the black man who purchased his first home at 34 in a neighborhood few people wanted and watched it become one of the best financial decisions of his life. They cannot tell you about the grandfather who never opened a brokerage account but paid off his mortgage, stayed out of debt, raised his children, and left behind a legacy of stability. They cannot tell you about the person doing everything right, saving, investing, building, planning, and still beginning 50 yards behind the starting line because of what previous generations were unable to pass forward. They cannot tell you about community wealth, the church that owns its building, the family that shares resources across households, the neighbor who repairs your car when money is tight, the aunt who provides childcare so someone else can work. These forms of wealth rarely appear on financial statements, but they are resources. They create stability, they create opportunity, and they matter. The wealth gap is real. The history that contributed to it is documented, and the efforts Black men are making today to save, invest, purchase homes, build businesses, and create financial security are real too. Both things can be true at the same time. The question is not whether Black men are trying to build wealth. The question is what it costs to build on uneven ground, and what changes when that ground becomes more level. Before we continue, I want to leave you with a question. How is wealth built and passed forward? And what does it mean to begin a wealth building journey without the advantages that inheritance, home ownership, and generations of accumulated assets can provide? Economic stability influences many parts of life. One of the most personal is family. In our next episode, we move from wealth to fatherhood. We look at the research on Black fathers. Who is present? Who is involved? What the data actually says, and how reality compares to one of the most persistent narratives in America. And we ask a question that deserves more attention than it often receives. How should we measure fatherhood? This series is designed to encourage understanding, not agreement. The statistics discussed in this episode and the sources used to obtain them are available below. If this conversation made you think differently about the topic, continue with episode 6 as we explore the next chapter in the story, because understanding begins long before conclusions do.